Good morning. Thanks for joining us online. I know we're not together, but we can worship together. So as we lead you in a few songs, I pray that you'll feel connected not only to God, but to the Bethel family. It's a pleasure leading you in worship. Now sing with us this morning. Stand against the Lord, no one can, no one will. Who can stand against the King? No one can, no one will. Victory belongs to Jesus. belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Oh, 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 oh. Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Oh, 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 oh. Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Jesus, victory belongs to Him.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you.
You are here, moving in our midst.
I worship you. I worship you.
You are here,
Working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
morning, Bethel Church. I'm Ryan Wright.
And I'm Janice Wright.
And we just want to welcome you, to our home, as well as welcome you to Bethel Church as you've joined us today online.
And we want to welcome those of you who are new to Bethel Church this morning. We're so glad that you found us online. We want to invite you to text us the word welcome. You can text the number 408-246-6790 and text that word welcome. We'd love to connect with you today.
Amen. We'd also like to invite you to join us for our Good Friday services. That will be on Friday, April the 10th at 12 p.m. or 12 o'clock noon. And we're just going to come together and we're going to reflect and remember the sacrifice that Christ made on the cross. We invite you to be with us for that and invite your friends as well to be with us on that day and to be with us again in 2 days, on 2 days later. Woo! On April the 12th. We'll be celebrating Easter together at 9:15 and 11. And we're just excited to have you come and be with us and invite your friends. Again, that's April the 12th, Easter Sunday, 9:15 and 11. We'll be having services.
And you can also check out our website, be watching it for up-to-date information as to where we're going to meet, whether we meet on one of our campuses or we meet together online once again. Either way,
we're going to meet together. That's just what we have to do. And so we
that's
do that.
Right.
We don't know
can't
where.
Wait.
We don't know where, but we know for sure we will be meeting together on Easter Sunday. So check out the website and find out more about that.
We also want to give a huge thank you, big thank you, to everyone who participated last week in our missions offering. Wow!
Yeah, it was phenomenal. So great. We're still waiting on all the numbers to come in. Mail has been forwarded to a new address, so we're waiting for that, as well as online giving. So we'll come with a total as soon as we get that total together. But I want to let you know, and I want you to realize that your giving is going to go a long ways. It's going to help us support our missionaries that we have made commitments to all over the world. And that giving is also going to give us the ability to help our community right here in the San Jose area. So thank you so much for your faithful giving.
We say thank you.
In my mind, this really has been the miracle in the midst of the crisis. The generosity of Bethel Church and all of this.
Wow.
And so with that, we want to transition into a time of offering. We don't have ushers that are coming, but we do give you an opportunity to maybe open up a tab on your computer. I just want to encourage you and remind you that whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. And now is not the time to stop sowing because we need to be reaping tomorrow. And I just encourage you to be faithful to the Lord with your tithe and with your offerings. Jesus said, if you seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, all that you need will be added unto you. Mm-hmm. And so we believe that, and we encourage you today to do that.
And you can give online at bethel.org/give.
Or you can text to give by texting your offering total to the number 84321.
Or you can give through our Bethel app or our website at bethel.org/give.
Or you can give the way that we've been given for years. You could write a check and make it payable to Bethel Church.
That works too.
And you could put that in an envelope. Just send it here, send it to our church address. And that would be Bethel Church, 1201 South Winchester Boulevard, San Jose, California, 95128. And we're gonna give you about 30 seconds so we can receive our offering. Just hit that tab on your computer or go to the Bethel, pick up your phone and go to the app. Let's pray together today. Father, thank you for your provision in our lives. And we give today as an acknowledgement of the fact that you are our provider. I pray your blessing upon every home, upon every person that is receiving this message today. I pray that they would know of your grace, that they would feel your peace. Mm-hmm. And that, Lord, as we give today, we would give as an acknowledgement that you alone are our provider. Mm-hmm. We thank you, God, for all that you're doing and all that you've done. We pray for those in crisis around the world, that your peace would come. We pray that, God, you would heal those who are sick, and that, God, you would provide for those who are in need. Mm-hmm. And we'll be careful to give you all the praise and the glory for it. In Jesus' name,
Amen. Giving is our act of worship, so happy giving.
Happy giving. God bless you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. And Pastor Frank is going to come and give us a great message. God bless. Bye-bye.
Hey, Bethel Church family. Just before we jump into the teaching today, I wanted to bring up just two additional announcements. First of all is to remind you of something brand new we're calling Daily Hope. Daily Hope. It is an online video devotional. You can go to our website, and our pastors are doing a devotional a day, and you can tune into that devotional. So I hope you'll do that. The second thing, and again, it's new, is Bethel Prays. And we're going to start a new prayer meeting virtual. And it'll invite as many people who would like to join. And it's going to happen starting this Thursday from 7 p.m. to 7:40. 7 p.m. to 7:40. For 40 minutes, we're going to take prayer points. We're going to come together virtually. All you have to do is go to our website, and you'll see a link, Bethel Prays. If you click on that link, it'll invite you into the prayer meeting. And we're going to pray together. There'll be a handout that you can walk through. And I just think it's going to be a powerful time. I hope you'll plan to join us for those two things. Thanks. God bless.
Hey, well, good morning, Bethel Church family, and I want to say a big shout out to all of you that would normally be here at the San Jose campus, as well as all of you that would normally be at the Santa Clara campus. I'm so glad you're tuning in today, and I want to say a big shout out to our guests as well, for all of you that are guests and have tuned in to Bethel today. So, some of you might be saying, hey, aren't you like back in the sanctuary? And that is true. We're back in the auditorium. Kind of a cool thing that happened. Last week, we contacted the county and suggested to our county that the church is essential. Like the church is one of the essential groups when it comes to bringing hope and help not only to our Bethel Church family, but for those that are in just in our community at large. And the county agreed. And they were gracious, and they allowed us to come in. It's very limited in terms of what we can do, and there's protocols that we have to follow. But the good news is that we get to be able to film everything, record everything, stream everything here. So we're really excited about that, and we're very grateful. Last week I made a statement that it's easy to allow the trivial or the stressful, like a pandemic, coronavirus. It's easy to allow the trivial or the stressful to keep us from what's essential in life. And I was thinking about that again because all of us have been there at one time or another. I mean, here we are in the middle of a pandemic. That's stressful, but then what's also interesting is the trivial runs on adjacent tracks, because I'm thinking it's shocking to me sometimes, maybe it's not so shocking, of things that people will argue about or fight about when we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we should be coming together and praying for God to break in, and we're going to do that at the end of this teaching. But it's just surprising sometimes what people are willing to argue and fight about. So we continue in this series, Neighborhoods and Nations. We'll wrap it up next Sunday as we move toward Easter. And when it comes to carrying out what Jesus has commanded us to do, remember those two final commands we looked at last week. Wait, okay? Jesus said, you guys need to wait before you go. Wait for the promise from my Father. Wait for the Spirit of God to fill you, to immerse you. Then go. Wait and then go. Waiting and going requires right motives and a right message. A right motives and a right message. And when I think of motive and I think of message, I think of one of my favorite stories that I've told, probably 2-3 times over the years, about a pastor who was traveling, and he was visiting, I think it was in the Pocono Mountains or something in Virginia or West Virginia, somewhere around there. Anyways, it's a hot summer day, and it was a Sunday, so he went to a local church, and it was just hot, it was steamy, people were it was kind of a lazy day, and it just felt like the pastor was droning on, and he People are nodding, their eyes are glazing over, and you could tell that he was losing them. And then all of a sudden, this pastor pauses, and in a booming voice, he says the following. He says, "The best years of my life have been spent in the arms of another man's wife." Well, everybody woke up. In fact, they were shocked. And then he went on to say, "It was my mother." Okay, the arms of another man's wife. It was my mother. Well, everybody kind of chuckled, big sigh of relief. And so this visiting pastor said, "I got to tuck that one away because I can use that one day." Sure enough, he did. Year later, he's speaking in his own church, and it's a hot, humid summer day, and he can tell he's kind of losing the folks, and they're kind of nodding their heads, and eyes are glazing over, and all of a sudden he just stops, and in a booming voice he says, "And the best years of my life have been spent in the arms of another man's wife." Well, everybody's awake. They're gasping. They can't believe what they just heard. But then he went on and he said, "But I forgot what came next in the joke." And he said, "In a moment of panic, all I could think to say was, and for the life of me, I can't remember her name." Well, that'll get you in some trouble. Sometimes we can have the best motives. I mean, our heart is right. We mean well, but if we don't get our message right, it can do more harm than good. And then the flip side is also true. Sometimes we have the message right. We have the greatest message ever, right? The gospel. It's the greatest message ever. But if our motives aren't right, like if we don't get the why behind the what right, like why we do what we do, like how we view people who are far from God, people that aren't anything like us, they don't believe like us, maybe look like us, any of those things. If we don't get the motives right, chances are we're going to miscommunicate the message that we love, which is the gospel. So here's the big idea for today's teaching. There should be an outline that's available to you on your screen, and you can actually interact with it. You can fill it out. And here's the big idea of where we're going for the next few moments. Reaching people in neighborhoods and nations involves valuing each person. Valuing each person. Valuing each one. And one of the great places where this is taught, in fact, I call it the theology of the missing. It's how God views the missing. And it's in Luke chapter 15, the gospel account of Luke in the New Testament. And I invite you to turn there to Luke chapter 15. Three familiar stories or parables that Jesus shares back to back to back, all with the same idea, all with the same focus. And Jesus uses these stories to demonstrate and celebrate the importance of valuing one. The value of one. The value of each one who is far from God. These are powerful stories. And I'm going to walk us through those stories. I'm going to leave you with two simple but life-changing truths if we can adopt them, if we can work them into our lives. These two truths that I leave you with, very briefly, very simply, will help you and I align our motives so the message that we want to share, the good news, can actually be heard in our culture today. It'll change everything about how you approach the missing in this world, okay? So let's take a look at it. It's interesting is in Luke 14, Jesus was with the crowds, and then he made some strong statements, challenged them about the cost of following him, and he thinned the crowds. Luke 15, another crowd has come. It's interesting that Luke wants us to know who's in the crowd. Like, that's important. It's important to know who is in the crowd in Luke chapter 15. And this is what he says in verses 1 through 3. He says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear him," that is, to hear Jesus. "But the Pharisees and the teachers," these are religious leaders, "of the law muttered, This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Then Jesus told them this parable. And he busts out in actually 3 parables. We'll get to those in just a moment, but I want you to know there are not only 3 parables, there are 3 groups. Okay? There are 3 groups. Tax collectors and sinners, the religious leaders, the religious elite, and then a little bit later in the story, in these stories, we find out it's the disciples that are also there. So first of all, you have a group that knows they're no good. Man, they know it. Tax collectors were loathed in the ancient world. In fact, tax collectors aren't particularly celebrated in the 21st century either. But man, in the first century, I mean, they were loathed, and rightfully so, because they were crooks. They were extortionists. I mean, they would collect taxes for Rome, so they were considered traitors by the Jews. But then they would skim. They would add taxes to the Roman taxes, which were already hefty, and then they would skim all that off the top. So a lot of times then, they were really wealthy. So people just, I mean, they hated him. They absolutely hated him. They knew they were no good, but they also knew they were rich. Then there was another group. Part of that group was sinners, so tax collectors and sinners. That's just a real general word for people who don't know God, the people that maybe have some incredible vices and issues in their life. It's a very broad term. Then there was those who thought they were really good. So you had the group that knew they were no good. Then you had the group that thought they were really good. And this is the religious leaders, the Pharisees and the teachers and so forth. By the time you get to the first century, the law of God, the essence of the law of God, the Big Ten, the 10 Commandments, it's been so distorted and so many other rules have been added to God's law that it literally divided people or drove people away from God. It didn't help people come to God. Their rules were literally weights around the necks of people. And one of those rules and one of those laws was you don't share a meal with anybody who isn't like you. And boy, especially if you were a Pharisee, you were a religious teacher or whatever. Table fellowship, that's what they called it. You don't have table fellowship with anybody unless they're like you, unless they believe like you. Well, this group's arrogance in its self-righteousness drove a wedge between people and God. That's why they were so appalled in the verses we read when they saw Jesus, a Jewish teacher, a Jewish rabbi, talking with and having a meal with tax collectors and sinners. And they couldn't believe it. They just couldn't believe it. Now, not all first century religious leaders were that way, but this group was. And Luke wants us to know it. He wants us to know it. Then you have the disciples. This is a group that really wants to be good. They don't always get it right, but they want to follow. They want to learn. They want to grow. And then Jesus busts out 3 parables to share with these 3 groups of people. And here's how his stories play out. The first story, he says, so suppose that one of you has 100 sheep. That would have been modest. Probably quite a few in that crowd had 100 sheep. And one of those sheep wander off. Not 10, not 25, 1. One wanders off. He says, well, what does the good shepherd do? He leaves the 99 and he goes after the one missing sheep. Now, this is the first of 2 somewhat surprising statements that Jesus makes in his stories. Here's why. The answer to the question, what would a shepherd do? Wouldn't he leave the 99 and go after the one in the crowd? The answer would have been no. That's not what he'll do. He's going to stay with the 99. Tough luck for the one. I mean, unless he's got somebody to watch the 99, he's not going to chase after the 99. But in Jesus' story, this shepherd does. He leaves the 99 and he goes after the one. And when he searches for the missing sheep and he finds that missing sheep, he throws it over his shoulders. You could read this story in Luke chapter 15. He throws it over his shoulders and he walks back and he gathers people together and they throw a big party, a big celebration because the one lost sheep, the missing sheep, is found. And then Jesus says the following words in Luke chapter 15 and verse 7. I tell you, in the same way, this is a story, it's a parable that tells us about how God operates. I tell you, in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents, one person who changes direction and moves towards God instead of away from God, who repents, than over the 99 righteous persons that do not need to repent. Jesus goes on with his second story. Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and she loses one of those coins. It would have been a denarius. It's a day's wage, very common in the first century. Well, she's lost one of those coins. Now, mind you, she's not lost 5. She's not lost 7. She's lost 1. And then Jesus says, by the way, if this woman was married, this coin could have been one of, she would have wore a headdress, and there would have been 10 coins around that headdress. So if, in fact, that was the case, and Jesus doesn't say, but if it does, it would have been pretty precious and irreplaceable. But we don't know. We don't know. What we do know is Jesus says in his story, she lights a lamp. She sweeps her place. Every nook and the idea there is to look at every nook and corner and searching for the one missing coin. And when she finally finds the one coin, it's important enough to call people together and celebrate, because my missing coin is now found. And then this is what Jesus says in Luke 15 and verse 10. In the same way, I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents, one person that changes their direction. Well, he continues, it's the same group, right? 3 groups of people that he's talking to, and here's the third parable. It's the one that is most well known. It's commonly called the prodigal son, or the missing son, the lost son. The truth is, there are 2 prodigal sons in this story. We just don't have time to unpack that today. That'll be for another time. But Jesus focuses the bulk of his attention in his story on the younger son. So we're going to do the same. The younger son asks his father. Jesus says, suppose the younger son comes and asks his father for his portion of the inheritance. This would have been an anathema in Jesus' day. According to Old Testament law, the kid gets a third. Okay, the younger one gets a third. So basically he's saying, Dad, I'd like to treat you like you're dead, and I'd like to have my inheritance. That's essentially the way it would have been taken. He takes his money, he leaves to a far-off land, and he lives on the wild side. Jesus unpacks that story. And he squanders everything that he has, because wild living always catches up to us. Always. And then this young man has lost everything. And he is alone. And he is feeding swine. Okay? And as he's feeding them, he finds himself longing for what they're eating. That's not good. You got to be pretty hungry. If you've ever seen pigs eat, reminds me of a story when my wife grew up in Iowa for her first 11 years. Most of her family's in Iowa. So we've been in Iowa, needless to say, quite a bit over our married life. And we've been able to go to the Iowa State Fair, which is a phenomenal fair. I'm going to tell you what, I've never seen pigs bigger than at the Iowa State Fair. And I remember one year we were there and we watched these pigs as they wallowed in the mud and as they ate food. And if I never watch another pig eat food again, I'm good. I'm good. So now you're in a Jewish culture. Jesus is telling this story. Well, they're all Jewish around him. And he knew, and they knew, well, that's off limits. It's dietarily, it's off limits. You don't eat pigs, you don't touch a pig, and you're certainly not going to eat what a pig eats. But this boy is longing for it. And then Jesus says in his story that he came to his senses. And he began to realize that his father's servants are treated far better and in far better shape than he is. He says, I'm going to go back to my father, and I'm just going to say, look, I'll be a hired hand. I don't need to be your son anymore. I'll be a hired hand. And Jesus says he starts home. And then Jesus says something really, really important next. He says, but while the boy or the son was a long ways off, the father saw him. The father was waiting. The father was watching for the son. This is the second somewhat surprising comment that Jesus makes culturally. Because if a son had done what he did to his father in this story, to approach his father, you don't just, you've already disrespected him. You've already pretty much said, you know what, I'm going to treat you like you're dead, give me my money. You would have, the father would have never came out of the house and presented himself to that son. The son would have had to come into the house. He would have had to bow down in humility, and he would have had to ask for forgiveness and in front of this father. There's no way the father would have came out and approached the son. But that wasn't true for this father in Jesus' story. In Jesus' story, this father exhibits outrageous love. It's shocking love. It's shocking love. His motive and his message toward the missing son, the rebellious son, the one that said, I'll take what's mine and I might as well treat you as dead. His motive and his message toward the missing son was redemptive, completely redemptive, restorative, welcoming him back. The one who brought all the trouble on himself, it was the kid. The one who brought all the trouble on his family. The one who dishonored and disrespected his father. And the father runs out and he runs to his son. And the crowd has got to be thinking in our vernacular, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? What father does that? What father would do that? And the son begins to confess his arrogance, and he begins to confess his sin and his failures. But the father throws his arms around him and hugs his neck and kisses him and honors him and celebrates him and blesses him. The missing has come home. Yeah, but don't you remember what he did? The missing has come home. He's home. Luke chapter 15, verses 22 through 24. Jesus says the following in the story. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. Verse 24, for this son of mine was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost and now is found. And so they began to celebrate. And the ones that knew that they were no good, tax collectors and sinners, the ones that thought that they were really, really good, religious leaders, and the ones that desperately wanted to be good, the disciples, all stood around Jesus, stunned and amazed. Because in their world, they thought God didn't do things like that. And Jesus came to change that view. Jesus illustrates profoundly and celebrates profoundly. Each one matters. Each one has value. These are parables. They're stories. So they all represent something. They're metaphorical. They mean something. The one who searches for those that are missing, the things that are missing, that person is God himself. He's the one doing the searching. He's the one. The ones who are missing are people who don't have a relationship with Him. They're far from God. The missing sheep, the missing coin, and the missing son. They don't have a relationship with the Father. It's been estranged. It's been separated. Those who celebrate are God, His angels, and God's household. That's us. The older son didn't celebrate, but he was in the household. Does that happen today? Yep, it does. So how do these stories help us align our motive and our message towards those that are far from God, those that may not believe at all like us, think at all like those who follow Jesus? How do they help us align motive and message so that we can reach the missing? I want to leave you two simple takeaways that change everything. They change everything as we build them into our lives. They demonstrate and celebrate the value of one. Here they are. Number one, God loves each one who is missing. God loves each one who is missing. Saying, Frank, that's the best you can do? Stay with me. Our culture, every single day of our lives, our culture picks winners and losers every single day. Every single day, our culture attaches value to some and refuses to attach value to others. Every single day of our lives, we hear it, we see it, it's posted, it's tweeted. Every single day, our culture is picking winners and losers. And church family, we need to make sure we don't. We don't. It's so easy to fall into, because we tend to value people who are just like us. And there's nothing wrong with having people who have common value system, common belief system. I mean, that's important to come together. It's important to have people in our lives like that. But in Jesus' stories, that's the point. Luke chapter 15, in Jesus' stories, it's God Himself who attaches worth to the one who rejects Him. It's God Himself who attaches worth to the one who wanders, the one who dishonors, the missing. It's God who attaches value to him. A week ago Thursday, we had an opportunity, and some of our Bethel staff jumped in on this opportunity, and they attached value. They attached worth to 100 families, which represented about 400 people. And Pastor Ryan stepped up on a Wednesday evening and made it happen in conjunction with Second Harvest. And Thursday morning, Troy O'Brien, our facilities manager and team, were here to serve 100 families, boxes of groceries, fresh fruits and vegetables. We didn't know most of those people. We didn't know if they knew Jesus or not. We didn't know if they were atheists. We had no idea what most of those was going on in their life. But we attached value to each one. We said, you matter. Let us help serve you in some way. And they did. When we view the missing the way God views the missing, it changes our motives. And it helps us communicate His message in ways that are irresistible. You can post this if you want. It's in your outline. Valuing the one who is missing creates a thirst in them to know more. Why would you do this for me? Number 2, God longs for the missing to be found. Obviously, a big idea in Jesus' stories. God longs for the missing to be found. The sheep, the coin, and the son were all missing. And the ones searching for them or waiting with anticipation for them, the ones searching or waiting and watching with anticipation, was God. This is why 5 times in the first 5 books of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, we are told to go. We go with our prayers and we pray for the missing. We go with our giving. We send others. We give to help others. I loved our missions offering last Sunday. We're up over $70,000 in that missions offering. How counterintuitive in that. How counterintuitive it is. for us to sacrificially give in the midst of a pandemic and a crisis. Only God. God blesses that kind of faith. And you can still give in that missions offering. We're up over 70,000, and we're still counting. We serve and search for the missing with our time and with our talents. We look for them, to find them, to connect with the missing, to connect with them in some tangible way. When our kids were small, I remember this distinctly, and we were just talking about it. Laura and I were just talking about it earlier this week. When we were at Mervin's. Now, it shows you how long it's been since our kids have been young, because some of you are going, Mervin's? Like, what's Mervin's? Okay. Well, you Google it and you can find out. But our kids were young, all real close in age. It was like herding cats sometimes when you had them in a department store. And I'll never forget it, man. I will never forget it. We turned one way, and then we turned back, and Nathan, our middle son, was gone. He was like 2.5. He's gone. I mean, he was just there, and he's gone. And I'm telling you what, Laura and I went into search and rescue mode. I mean, I was ready to lock down the whole store. Nobody goes in, nobody comes out until I find my kid. Well, what had happened, and he was this way, he's quiet, kind of sneaky sometimes, and he went up under the clothes rack, and there's this shaft that's in the middle of the clothes rack, and then it was a round clothes rack, and the clothes hung low, so you couldn't see him. And he's up on that shaft, and he thought it would be kind of fun just to hide from mom and dad. He thought everything was fine. He didn't know that he was missing. He was missing. And so it is for some of our family members. Maybe some friends, co-workers, neighbors, and those in far-off nations. I've said this before, I beat this drum to death. It's so easy to think that people have already rejected the gospel of Jesus Christ. And some have, and some will be hostile toward it, and Jesus said that would happen. I get that. They'll hate you because they first hated me, okay? But there are the majority of people in this country that they don't even know what the gospel is. They've never heard it. They've heard all kinds of stuff that's religious, but they've not heard the gospel. They've not heard these stories. They've not heard these stories about a God that searches for them relentlessly. They've not heard those stories. But they're real, and that's who God is. Easter is 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away. It's so hard to believe. 2 weeks. We're either going to have it here in this building, we're going to have it online, but we're going to have Easter. We're going to have Good Friday. We're going to do communion. It's probably going to be online. We'll see what happens next week. But we're going to have Good Friday, so get ready for communion, okay? We're going to do it. It's going to be from noon to 1. So you'll want to get a wafer, you want to get your juice, and we're going to walk through that together. Easter, we're going to celebrate one way or the other. We're going to be ready. Who will you pray for? Who will you pray for? Who will you invite? We will have a way for you to go on our website and send an invitation to somebody else, okay? We're working on that. We're going to have that up and running. Who are you praying for now? Friends, this is an extraordinary time in our history. I have never experienced anything like what we're experiencing right now in my lifetime. These are opportunities to engage with the missing, because they need to know that there's a God that searches and chases after them and loves them and gave his son for them. They need that. Let's be a part of a miracle in somebody else's life. I stand before you today because somebody invited my family to church, a troubled 16-year-old who lived in San Jose and was far from God. And because of that invitation, God broke in on my life and has changed my life for over 40 years. I'm telling you, invitations have power. They have power. Well, I want to wrap up with a quote from Mother Teresa, just finishing reading her biography. She made an insightful comment when somebody asked her, well, how do you see the difference between the poor in Calcutta and the poor in America or in the West? This is what she said. You in the West have millions of people who suffer such terrible loneliness and emptiness. They feel unloved and unwanted. These people are not hungry in the physical sense, although some are, but they are in another sense. They know they need something more than money, yet they don't know what it is. What they are missing really is a living relationship with God. The missing are everywhere, you guys. They are power brokers in Fortune 500 companies. They are mid-level management. They are the poor. They are those who are on our streets. They are soccer moms and soccer dads. The missing are everywhere. They are everywhere. And I say, let's leverage the greatest story ever told, the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the supernatural story. Let's leverage it in a way by praying and inviting the missing to join us for Easter, that they may become the found. The found. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for these stories. Thank you for revealing the heart of God to us. I really believe there are some right now that are listening or watching, and they needed to be reminded just how crazy your love is for us, how scandalous it is. Your love is all about you. It's not about us. I mean, you love us, but you're the one who loves us. You're the one who takes that first step. It's not about what we do, it's about who you are. And in this moment, I pray you fill every life with your love. And if you've never received Christ's love in your life, if you've never received Jesus into your life in this moment, why not do it? In this moment, invite him in. Don't wait another moment. Just say, Jesus, I come to you right now. Well, no matter where you are, I come to you right now. And I ask you to forgive me for living my life apart from you. Come into my life. Be the forgiver. Be the leader of my life today. I want to receive your love. I want to repent or change direction and begin following you with my life. And friend, if you prayed that prayer, if you'll let us know, it's a simple way to let us know. All you got to do is email us at hello@bethel.org and just say, I prayed the prayer. hello@bethel.org. God, as we wrap up today, I pray that you will use us to be people of prayer and people who serve and give and invite, that you'll use those invitations for your great purposes in the lives of the missing. Help us that they might be found. And we pray, God, over this crisis. And we pray that you would protect the many that are suffering right now from this virus, that you would bring healing and peace. Bring your wisdom today, God, to those who are in government, those that are in the medical fields, those who have to manage these things, God. Give them your wisdom and your favor and eradicate this thing. We pray you provide for those who are suffering financial loss, that you'll make a way for them. And we pray that you have your way. You bring good out of things that aren't. And we'll trust you and we'll thank you. We love you, Lord. We pray this all in your strong name. Amen. Amen. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you for joining Bethel Church Online. If you have any prayer needs during the morning services, please feel free to reach out during the chat window while you're watching service. On Facebook, you can call us at 408-246-6790, or you can email us at hello@bethel.org. Whichever way you choose, we have prayer partners waiting to pray with you. And if you need anything outside of those hours, please feel free to call the same number, email the same email, find us on Facebook. We're here for you regardless during this time. But make sure to tune in next week, same times, 9:15 and 11 a.m. as we continue to bring church to your home.